Social work is a profession designed to help people receive the help and services they need to be functional members of society. The government helps to promote this by depending on varying social welfare aspects that work to establish these services. What happens when the same system set in place to protect is the same system that does more harm than good for these members of society? Who then suffers and becomes the victim? Acknowledging a client's past history and behavior allows the professional helper to create strategic plans for the client. Since the early 1960s, with an exception of a gap in the 1980s, foster care has had vast number of children in their system. As of today, those numbers still show a trend growing all across the nation. Thousands of children in foster care have been abused and not rescued or defended properly. Child Protective Services' goal are to get children back together with their families and help maintain and provide a safer environment for the child. Even though those are their long-term goals, those goals sometimes have tragic endings. In the featured story involving Siobhan Thomas and her son Zuri Thomas, the social worker, with the help of the court, initially made the right decision to remove Zuri from his home upon learning that his mother was a drug abuser. Siobhan Thomas left him unattended in a vehicle. Later during the investigation, Siobhan admitted to using marijuana and PCP. Siobhan was taken to jail for neglect by the Department of Child and Families following the incident when her son Zuri was placed with a relative. Zuri was placed with his relative from November 28, 2010 until July 11, 2011, when his mother gained custody after completing a mental health, substance abuse counseling, and other counseling offered. The foster care system intentions were good. However, reunification with an unhealthy parent that is suffering from substance abuse is not always the best resolution. Through the residual social welfare aspect, which deals with the needs as they come and cater to problems already faced by the individual, which in this case is Zuri, Child Protective Services was sought. The state then became responsible in seeing that the boy received all provisions, basic survival needs for food, shelter, clothing, and medical care from a developmental social welfare aspect. The following month, August 2, 2011, Siobhan was given a urine test and failed it, testing positive for PCP. Zuri was taken out of her custody the same day and placed with the same relative until the following April, when he was returned to his mother through a court's order, noting that Siobhan had attended therapy and parenting programs, such as in-home services and approved children's services organization. After all, the purpose of the social program, Child Protective Services Child Welfare, had been established by the government as a type of residual response system for those children who are in direct or immediate danger of abuse or neglect. This program serves in a residual capacity which is short-term and that is withdrawn when the person in need of aid becomes capable of independence from the system. This was to be a temporary action in that Zuri was removed from his home until assistance from the government was no longer deemed necessary for his safety. Siobhan attended each program but failed to test negative when random urine tests were given to her over an 8-month period. With the Department of Child Protective Services, mental health, and drug counseling monitoring, Siobhan still could not beat her addiction. In August 2012, Siobhan Thomas's battle with substance abuse took a toll on her. From an institutional standpoint, Siobhan had rights as a citizen as well, in that institutional social work focuses on giving each person equal opportunity to be supported, whatever their circumstance. So despite the fact that Siobhan had a history of substance abuse, the court reinstated those parental rights of the young mothers, returning custody of her son to Siobhan. However, the court acknowledged that Siobhan did have a history of making destructive and irresponsible decisions. The court took an institutional approach to that situation as well, by providing government-funded social services to Siobhan through drug counseling programs. The institutional social work policy is the approach that everyone deserves to be supported by the community and the government by providing assistance to the young mother. On Wednesday morning in August 2012, Siobhan Thomas called the police and stated her boyfriend had stabbed her son Zuri Thomas. But Siobhan quickly retracted what she stated to the officer and admitted to killing the 2.5-year-old son. Siobhan Thomas took her own life shortly after decapitating her son. Following Competency 7 would have eliminated the tragic murder. Competency 7 is applying human behavior and social environment to the client's case. Being aware of Siobhan's illness could have prevented such a harmful death. Knowing unhealthy environments may lead to a destructive lifestyle was a social worker's responsibility for helping the victims Siobhan and Zuri Thomas. From the developmental aspect of social work, the well-meaning social worker and the court mandated that the child be removed from the home not once, but twice. So why didn't the social worker keep the boy out of the home once it was discovered that the mother had failed multiple drug tests? One can argue that had the boy been removed from the home until extreme measures were taken by the mother to provide the government with real concrete proof that she had in fact turned her life around and could provide stable environment for her child to live in, this tragedy wouldn't have occurred, and that if the mother had received more assistance from the government in the way of preventative measures, such social programs are established to provide either preventative or responsive support to the members of the society. Siobhan's life would be different today, perhaps, as well. Maybe Siobhan and Zuri are both victims of this failed system. After all, the social worker was assigned to this case to establish positive interactions amongst the state, but most importantly, Zuri and his mother. Should the mother be given the full blame, since the court deemed her responsible enough to have her son returned to her in full custody, with the social worker knowing that she had failed at her drug preventative programs? Maybe the court should have looked at this situation from a different angle, through the development social policy in which the process of a change which creates a better ordering of relationships among people, their physical environment, and their social organization in order to provide a satisfying life for all. The mother would have had sole custody of her son had she had proper access to these services, like more preventative measures such as proactive counseling programs, or perhaps parenting classes, or maybe even serving jail or prison time. Then perhaps Zuri and Siobhan would still be alive today.